Hello again, welcome back. Today we are going to work on the metric system, and we are coming to you today from the insides of a pothole. So this is a sandstone behind me with very, very fine, tiny laminations where water has scoured out a little pothole about the size of my head. It's blown up in this picture. Anyway, onto the metric system. Now, many of you have probably not done the metric system in quite some time. We only use it a little bit when we're in school, but we are going to use it a lot in lab. It's so much easier. Base 10, you know, it's not like how many inches in a foot? 12. How many feet in a mile? 5,280. It's like, how many centimeters in a meter? 100. How many meters in a kilometer? 1,000. You're just moving zeros around. It's so much easier. So let's get started. Share my screen. And move my toolbar, which apparently you guys can't see, but I can, and it gets in my way. So we'll scoot that down there. And on to the lab. This is your second lab. As a reminder, here is your lab manual. Right there, use it. If you still don't know where your lab manual is, it's on that link. And then metric system. So you're gonna need some materials for this lab today. So let's check out what those are. Here is your lab material list. Again, if you haven't looked this over by now, this is your second lab of the semester, you need to look this over and order the materials that are on there. I cannot stress this enough. If you do not order your materials, you will not get your labs done in time, and then you will lose many points. So please order your materials if you have not already. And for the metric system, you are going to need mostly just the common household items. So for this, it's going to be the things down here. You're gonna need a coffee mug, you're gonna need measuring spoons like you would use for baking, and you're gonna need tablespoons and teaspoons that you would use, you know, just for like eating soup or a coffee mug, because we're gonna compare the accuracy of measuring versus common kitchen utensils. So let's go back to the lab. We'll open this guy up. So whatever materials you need for each lab are going to be listed as one of the first items in every folder. So right here, boom, this is what you need for the day, okay? Here are your extra explicit directions. And then once again, follow your activities. Now you are going to read your lab manual for background information. There's some really good explanations in there about moving through the metric system, how many orders of magnitude from one to the other. It is doing some examples of conversion, so make sure you're using that as your resource. Here is a handy metric system tutorial and metric ruler tutorial, all these different things. And then you're just gonna go ahead and you're gonna do your activities. Now, one thing you might be thinking, yeah, I did this in high school, I did this in junior high, that's fine. But one thing that you probably have not done is the micrometer, or micrometer, as scientists would say. The micrometer is a teeny, teeny, tiny measuring unit, smaller than a millimeter. So I have handy my ruler. I know the virtual background doesn't make this ideal, but one side is inches and the other side is centimeters, okay? And the little tiny lines, that little tiny space between my fingers is a millimeter. There's 1,000 of them in 1 meter, okay? Now, there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. In 1 single millimeter, the space between my fingers, there are 1,000 micrometers. So if we're looking at my standard 12-inch ruler, which has on it 30.5 centimeters, each centimeter has 10 millimeters. So if we take 30.5 and we times it by 10, that's 305 millimeters. If you were to count every teeny tiny little mark on the bottom of this ruler, you would get 305 hash marks, 305 millimeters. In between every single millimeter is 1,000 micrometers, 1,000 micrometers. So 305 times 1,000, so carry 2 zeros, is 30,500 micrometers. In this space, 30,500 units of measure that you can only see with a microscope. And so the micrometer is a unit of measure that is used to measure microscopic things. And that's what you're going to do. So moving on, as you work through this, all of everything I just said will make a heck of a lot more sense because you're going to do exercises on it. And somewhere on here, you will, this one, you will use the stage micrometer to measure an example of small things. And you will use the unit of measure mu, which is that funny little symbol, which stands for micrometer. Things get really small. You know, we talk about nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is 10 to the negative 9. So there is 1 billion nanometers in 1 millimeter. So that's really, really, really teeny, teeny, crazy tiny. So that's a little breakdown. You're not going to do nanos. You're only going to do micros. Let's see. So kind of the same thing. That's what you're doing. You're using your links. You're working through the activity. You are reading from your lab manual. And this last part is really fun. I think it's fun, but you're going to do some comparisons. So you're going to take a coffee mug. Any standard coffee mug, you know, don't use the huge, I mean, you can, it will be hard for me to tell if you're doing it accurately, but use like a normal coffee mug. And you're going to fill it with measured teaspoons. And then you're going to use your, you know, tablespoon that you might use to eat a big bowl of cereal. And you're going to do those spoons and you're going to compare how many you use to kind of compare the accuracy of your spoons. And you'll go through this exercise using those different utensils, which I think is just a neat exercise. And then you are going to do some temperatures. Now, if you're like me and you have a digital thermometer and you got the point and shoot option, this can be really fun because you can measure the temperature of just about, you know, anything. My husband uses the surface thermometer quite often. He's a beekeeper, and so he uses it to measure the temperature of his hives and things like that. It's funny. You know, we use it on our daughter's forehead. During COVID, it was used quite frequently on just about every one and everything. Anyway, digital thermometers are fine. The ones that you use, you know, under your tongue, you can use body thermometers to measure the temperatures of things, but those are only going to go up to around, you know, like 108, I think some of them go up to. And so it just will scream at you that you have a very bad temperature, but it won't really give you anything accurate above that. So, you know, measure things that you can measure with the device that you have, okay? And then long, short answers. Now I separate these out because they're easier to answer and they're easier to grade this way. just a little FYI about how I do things. So that's pretty much it for the metric system. And always, if you have questions, just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to answer them. Have a great day, everybody.